Hey guys, I just wanted to take a minute to introduce myself today. My name's Brandon. A lot of you have been following me on Instagram on my Southern Diggers account. A lot of you have shown interest in what I do, and actually had a lot of questions. I just wanted to try to answer a couple of them real quick. The main one that I get is, how do I find a location to actually dig where we dig for bottles at? And that's an interesting question, and it's a little hard to answer, to be honest. Truthfully, I have a unfair advantage of being a second generation digger. So my dad dug in the late 70s, early 80s, and he was one of the first few to kind of pioneer it, if you would, in our area. There was a couple of his buddies that still dig, and by word of mouth, a lot of them have passed down to me where they dig, because they're getting up in age and they're not able to dig anymore. That's one way. Now the second way is a little bit more difficult, but if you don't have people to go to help you find locations, you can use Sanborn maps. And I've actually talked about this before, but if you go to the Library of Congress website, and you can actually talk with them and ask them for Sanborn maps. And what Sanborn was, it was a fire insurance company, and they have been around forever. I'm talking about mid-1800s. And what you can do is you can ask them for the town that you're looking for, the Sanborn map for that. So you can say, okay, I'm looking for Birmingham, Alabama Sanborn maps from 1880 to 1907. And what they'll do is, any map that's available, they will email it to you, and you can either download it and print it out, or you can just look at it on your phone. And on these maps, it's not going to have your exact dump location, so this is where the work comes in. You have to take the map, you got to look at it, and it'll show you where maybe the bottlers were, or where the liquor companies or beer companies were. And you can take and look at those areas. You can look and see where the houses were, and you can kind of go from there. And what I mean by that is, according to what I have really researched and found out, almost all dumps around the turn of the century, say 1880 to 1920, were next to a creek. And the reason for that being, they were always control burning these dumps. So they would put a layer on it for a year, they'd set it on fire, and they would burn it out. And what a creek did was, one, it kept the fire under control. Two, usually it's kind of swampy next to a creek and it was unusable land. So that allowed them to have a place to dump that was not wasting land that would be valuable for something else later on down the road. So if you find a creek, it's in a low-lying area, that's a good place to look, that's in the middle of a town. And usually a city dump is within about a mile of a town or the town center. So, you know, there's going to be a bunch of them in big towns like Birmingham or Atlanta, but in smaller towns it'll be a lot easier to locate them. So you can go to a smaller town that, say, has a population of 1,500 or above, and they should have had a city dump. And that city dump, more than likely, will be someplace along a creek that is close to this particular town that you'll be looking for. They also put these dumps a lot of times next to graveyards. Now the reason for that being, graveyards, back in the day, people were scared of disease. Okay, so they put the dump and the dead close to each other because they both carried disease. Okay, and that's kind of it's kind of disturbing to think about, but it's just the reality of the fact. So if you use what I just said, you use the Sanborn maps. You think about where the creeks run in the town, and then you think about where the graveyards are, and you kind of go off that. So if there's, say, there's a wooded area between your town creek or river, and between the graveyard that's a local old graveyard, then that would be a good place to look. Go out, take a probe, at least a 6-foot probe, probe down, see if you hear any glass. If you do, dig a pilot hole. There's no telling what you'll find. Another way to do it is to walk the creeks. You'll see a lot of guys on YouTube putting videos up of them walking creeks. You can walk a creek, you can look on the bank, and as you start to see more and more exposed glass, or if you see whole bottles even in the creek, you look for a large concentration. And if you find a large concentration of these bottles, say coming out of a creek bed wall or a river bank, then you want to explore that. Get up on the bank, dig you a test hole. It's not easy. You have to put the work in, you have to dig the hole, you have to see if it's there. Now you're going to strike out 9 times out of 10, but if that one time you actually succeed, it could be well worth it. A city dump can be acres and acres. I have 2 or 3 of the dumps that we dig in are like more than 10 acres. So, I mean, if you think about it like that, you find a spot, you have a place you can dig for years on end after that.